So a few things to keep in mind when you're planning early season trips. When you're doing the desktop, you really want to try and locate some north faces, even northwest faces, like I have here right now in front of me, is generally the most productive. The summer heat can burn off the south face, and the deer will come to the north face where they can get more shade. The vegetation got a slower start, so there's usually more feed available in the early season. Another really important desktop thing to do before you get out here is more and more is to check the wildfire maps, and specifically the smoke maps. There's a couple online resources. I'll link them in the description below, where you can actually see the heavy smoke area. Like, for example, this hunt, I was supposed to be up further north and meeting a couple buddies just as I got off the plane yesterday, and I held off on going up there because they were pulling out because the smoke was too bad. It wasn't too bad in the week, and then late fire started in the area and blew them out. So they were doing the checks. They just you can still get burned. So that put a wrench into that plan. So I rejigged my plan, and I'm out here for on September 4th. Well, it's actually the 5th now, for a bow hunt. And I'm positioned with nice marbled north face slopes. It's very important that the slope is marbled. Your eye will want to focus on the big openings, and you'll find yourself really getting distracted with the easy glassing. But what you really need to do is, through the marble pockets, is really zero in and go slow, and you just pick that ground apart. It takes a little bit to get used to, but that's what you got to do. You got to slow down, because you think you're glassing and you're not actually glassing effectively. Another important thing about early season is to still be prepared. You can see this morning I'm in my puffy pants. Well, you can't see that, I don't think, but you can see I'm in my puffy coat. I got my toque on. Even my light gloves. It got down to 2 degrees, or well, 5 degrees, and felt like 2 degrees here last night. So it's a beautiful morning. It did rain all night, but that's what you got to key in on. Just like I said in the previous videos, everything still applies. You want that feed to that bedding. That's why the marbled forest is the marbled subalpine is kind of the best, in my opinion, for that, because it puts the feed and the bedding areas really close together. So you can scan across it, see nothing, scan across again in 10 minutes, and all of a sudden there's a couple deer out in a couple different spots. So and the key for glassing is, some guys could do it really well, where they just get on the glass and they don't come off for a half an hour or 45 minutes. I find that I'm going to get more fatigued if I try and do that. So what I try and do is have 10-minute glassing sessions, then take a 5 or 10-minute break. If I think it's hot in the morning, that'll be 5 minutes, maybe just a couple minutes, back on for 10, and just keep repeating that cycle. It gives me a chance to make a coffee, and then have my coffee and continue glassing. Make a snack, continue glassing. So the whole name of the game is to keep yourself interested in it, and every time you take a little break, what it does is it resets your brain that the deer might be out now. So when you glass again, you glass a little more intently. And the more intently you glass, the better your success is going to be. So, it's definitely taken a few years just to really get that into my head, that you know, that I really need to slow it down. You know, you always want to be off. So this is a monopod here. I am filming with my tripod right now, but the tripod is by far the best. Monopod is a close second with a ball head on it like this. It does work pretty good and doesn't add too much weight. I actually use this as one of my trekking poles, so it does double duty here. So that's been working out just nicely. Another thing about early season mule deer hunting is a lot of times there's going to be some of the deer that still have their orange summer coats, and if there's ever a dead giveaway, especially in the morning light when it's kind of flat like this, it's that orange coat, or the evening light when it's really blasting on the hill, that just gives them away, you know, more so than even their hind end there. Because really, when you're looking on the flat land, once they've grayed up, which, you know, basically by the middle of this month, you'll be hard pressed to find a deer that's not gray. So what it is, it's their body starting to shut down on the amount of nutrients it requires as they start to prepare for the winter season. They So they lose that vibrance, that bright orange vibrance where they're feeding heavy through the summer. The bucks are in a state of growth where their antlers are in velvet, and there's just the full nutrients going into their body, and they really, really absorb as much as they can through the heavy feeding season, and then their body starts to shut down to conserve the energy and the fat stores that they've built up, so that they'll be able to survive the winter. So you get back to basics once they've grayed out, and you're looking for their white flanks, their white butt. They do show up. They have like a tobacco tinge to the white. It's a different color white than you generally see, but it does shine up quite good, especially if you see them moving. A lot of times they're feeding up out of their bedding zones, so if you're looking upslope or cross slope, you see them moving up as they feed out into the morning session. I mean, they still come sideways. There's still some white around their face that you can pick up. If you're within, you know, out to 500-600 yards, I mean, you can clearly pick up ear flicks and any kind of movement. Once you start getting out to 1,000 yards, it's more about, you know, picking up that distinct orange body color for the early season, or, you know, overall silhouettes on the side hill, or, you know, most prominently it is the white butts. Like you see that, and you can even pick it up with the naked eye at 1,000 yards sometimes, and you'll be really surprised at what you can see. Now, you certainly at 1,000 yards, even with these 12 by 50s, these Vortex razors, you know, it's got to be a big buck for you to be able to really determine. You can see a lot with body language and stuff still at 1,000 yards. But if it's, you know, the difference between a 2-point and a 3-point at 1,000 yards is pretty hard to tell with the 12 powers. So I run my my little 11 by 33, I think this thing is. Yeah, my 11 by 33 Vortex razor. I've had to lighten my kit. I was running the biggest Vortex razor, but with carrying all this camera gear and everything else, I've swapped out the weight of some of that and lightened up my kit. Same with using the TP shelter. You know, I'm saving about a pound from my Helleberg setup. So I shaved weight and then added it back in because I've got a full camera rig on here now. top handle cage, side handle, you know, Rode NTG microphone. So I've definitely kitted up quite a bit here. So for early season mule deer, another thing that's really interesting is all the bucks are grouped up together. They're called bachelor groups. So usually when you see a buck, there's generally going to be, you know, one or more around him. So once you see one, you really want to take your time to look around that area. Sometimes you'll see a little forky with the does and that, but generally the bucks are off in groups, especially the bigger bucks. Sometimes there'll be 2 points hanging out with monsters, but you know, a lot of times the big boys will have their own little group of 3 to 6 deer, and they'll cruise as buddies, especially while they're in velvet, and you know, but basically right through September you can really still see them hanging out together before they really start splitting off and sparring more often, and just starting to get ready to set the pecking order straight. So, well, when you come out early as well, in bow season, particularly in the backcountry in British Columbia, you're pretty fortunate that, you know, you're one of only a few people if you push back. I'm about 8 kilometers in here today, and you know, there's absolutely not a soul around me. This year we're really trying to put the knowledge to work and hook up with some bigger deer. So you know, we're going to be more patient. I love mule deer meat very, very much. The mountains are pretty tough. The deer are incredibly hardy. Like, we are very weak compared to deer. It is amazing that they can survive out here so easily.